Hello, it's December 2024. Now, this video is inspired by a post that I had read, and it was talking about a mainstream news documentary on the Coutts Alberta Canada convoy, specifically the 4 men that would be ultimately convicted of multiple charges. And I didn't know about the documentary, so of course I decided to go watch it, and it was very interesting. Now, I did read through the post and I did make a few comments to it, and I'm going to focus on that in a little bit. But watching the documentary, and what I really found interesting, and then contrasting that with how people, for example, have been talking about, for example, these 4 men and the other people who were charged, convicted, and so forth, was the fact that during, for example, the interrogation, how much they were incriminating themselves. Not only that, but going off on tangents with regards to the New World Order and everything else. Now, I just want to make something very clear here. I'm not stating or implying that this world isn't full of wickedness, and that, for example, governing bodies cannot do harm to their people overall, or specifically individuals. And I've shared a plethora of independent evidence supporting my experiences with these things. That's not really my focus here. Going back to how these men were talking about how the world is and everything else, I've stated repeatedly, even before 2020, how it is very important not to be consumed by anything on any topic, whether it be religion, politics, pineapple on pizza. And by the way, I'm going to throw in a new one here. A question: is a hot dog a sandwich? Anyway, I digress. So watching these guys being interviewed, interrogated, and contrasting that with how people perceive them and their supporters in public and everything else, it's very interesting now that we see this footage coming out in this documentary, and how people are reacting to the documentary, like, for example, their supporters. These grown men crying, shaking, scared, backpedaling on, or trying to backpedal on, some of the statements they've made publicly in their own videos and everything else, really shows who these people are when under pressure, how they would cave in and back down. And people, primarily their supporters, see these people as heroes and people who will fight for truth, justice, and all this other stuff. And I've said, even in recent videos, how it's these people who are fear-driven. They're too afraid. And, like, for example, any afraid, scared animal, they become unpredictable. And this is where we see authority types, right or wrong, I'm not passing judgment here, but how they stepped in, realizing that this situation can quickly escalate into something insane. And based even on their comments during their interview, their interrogation, it really supported the fact that these people were terrified. Setting aside the fact that they were crying and backpedaling and tap dancing and whatever, not wanting to be in trouble for anything, trying to avoid being held accountable for anything that they did do, it really shows the character of a fear-based driven individual or individuals. And this really supports even my recent videos where I say these people are afraid before a new equilibrium is established. And I've highlighted for years, even again before 2020, the only thing that you can do is survive life. Whatever is going to happen, whether it be real or perceived, is going to happen. You have to be able to be prepared, overcome, adapt, and move forward with the situation. Now, a lot of people, their supporters, for example, were the ones going against the mandates and mandatory this and mandatory that and everything else. And I will say, and I've proven, that I was a person who didn't agree with it myself. I continued to live my life, made my choices, and one of my choices almost cost me my life with regarding to a surgery that I needed to save my life. But these are things I did for myself on my own. There was no elaborate anything. I guess one could say as a descriptive that I lived as a free person, and I also accepted the consequences of my choices in the world that we live in. For example, not complying with whatever requirements to have the surgery, and realizing that even some of the videos that I had made that day when I walked out of the hospital, I was dying. That's a reality. If you see those videos, realize that I was dying in those videos. The medications for pain and everything else were starting to wear off, and I was feeling it. Anyway, I digress. But it's really interesting to see how people connect, relate to, for example, these four men and others that I've talked about even in recent videos, because they're of the same mindset, the same character, fear-driven. And of course, as again, using the example of the scared animal being unpredictable, the authority types had to come in and prevent something from escalating. And we can see even by their discussions and their admissions with regards to preparing and defending and how perceived leaders should be tried and be taken from life and everything else, you can see how fragile they were. And these are the people that their supporters look up to as heroes, crying, trying to avoid being accountable. You have to think about this. Look at it this way. Let's just say these people were doing something good. Why are they trying to avoid the repercussions? Wouldn't it be like a badge of honor of sorts? And this even pertains to their supporters and followers. And I'm setting aside how protests and marches and all these things, I've talked about this extensively in other videos, the real reason why these things are allowed. If somebody didn't want to go along with something that was being imposed, whether it be bad or good, real or perceived, it doesn't matter, then they made their personal choice. Weak people band together. And I've highlighted this on the flip side with, for example, various authority types and so forth, how everyone bands together. We see this now with, as a descriptive, the alternative types banding together. And all the evidence, physical evidence that was gathered, and them trying to deny it, but then there's also all these other evidence that does link it to them. And I did a video some time ago with regards to, okay, so this is the plan. You want to resist through violence. At what point do you think that you will kind of continue to be successful? And I lay out, so you have the first group, you have police, say you go through them, and then you have like SWAT, and then you move right up to military and all their equipment. It's ridiculous to think that you would even consider having a chance, but hey, too many Hollywood movies promoting nonsense had put these delusions in people's minds that yes, you know, I'll go down as a hero. No. You got to think about, for example, and I've said this before, you look at world wars, you know, the people in their countries during World War II, for example, didn't want the war, and they stood out, protested the tanks going down their street. Do you know their names? No. Do you know anything about them? Do you even know that if they tried? I can make up a story right now and say, yeah, Bob, he tried and he left life honorably and all this. I can just make that up. You'd never know. Surviving whatever is being imposed is key. And we see this, for example, again, we'll use World War II as an example. The stories we hear about are the ones who survived. They're not the ones that reacted in fear and went crazy. They're the ones that just survived, you know, the best they could. They made it, perhaps a little bit traumatized, whatever, but that's all life is about survival. And you're not stopping anything that is being imposed, especially on a worldwide scale. I really just want to draw attention to these people who think that this protest by rubber was for a good cause and accomplished something. Accomplished nothing, as I stated. I've proven it. The mindset of people, and in this documentary towards the end, I forget, one of the people being interviewed said, well, this is not going to end, because yes, there's so many scared people who do not have the testicular fortitude to survive because they're fear driven, and they exist. They're not helping, but they're causing more problems. They're the ones that are going to be inviting more things to be imposed, if you think about it. Now, just before I close off, this video is from a neutral stance, not taking sides, not stating or implying anything towards anyone, any group, governing bodies, or individuals thinking that they're doing something right. I'm just highlighting some points here, things to think about. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share.
Listen to this and write it down if you can't remember it. You're never going to outgrow warfare. You simply must learn to fight. I hear people say to me, oh, when is it going to get easier? When you die.